Welcome to Hitting Home. I'm Arif Khan, and I'm glad you're joining us today. One of the things that I keep stumbling across in conversation with clients and just people in everyday life is the uncertainty, the questions that people are asking themselves at home, amongst family, amongst peers, about kind of the uncertainty in life, in the economy, and what does my future look like? And so today I'm really glad to have as a guest and a friend who's joining me, Patricia Dent, who is a CEO and business mentor with GrowVantage. Patricia, I'm so glad you're here.
Me too.
And I'm looking forward to, we had a bit of a pre-conversation, and I kind of asked our producer, why aren't we recording already? So
so hopefully we haven't run out of ideas right now, right?
No, I think we're going to do just fine. But for our friends at home, hang in there. I think we're going to have a pretty interesting conversation that I believe will genuinely resonate with most people at home.
I think so.
And I really wanted you to come here and share with me today because you work on a daily basis with entrepreneurs, business owners, small business owners, people who are starting up. But really, when I sort of dial that back, I look at it as people who are searching. They're looking for that alternative to the frustration, the mental anguish of the status quo, and people who are just struggling with ever-increasing household debt or not uncertainty of what the future holds.
Well, I think that's pretty common these days because we've been through quite a number of changes, and they're not stopping yet. This is not the, oh, thank heavens we're over that change period, because there are many changes, adjustments. The economy still isn't quite stable. We're not necessarily feeling confident about driving forward and doing some amazing things in our business. So it is a period of change, and we have to adapt to that.
And so in sort of keeping with the theme around what's going on in the conversation, whether it's a conversation around the dinner table or conversation between friends and peers, that people are seeking, they are searching. And one of the things that I'm seeing as a common thread is that there's one thing that's missing, and people haven't necessarily put their finger on what that thing is that's missing.
In their lives, do you mean?
Yes.
What's missing in their lives? I agree. I'm a corporate escapee. That's the way I label myself. I've worked in corporate for 30 years. There can be a lot of limitations when you're working for other people, as you know. Entrepreneurship is one of those states of mind that allow people to focus on what they want to do. And it may be more challenging in some ways. It is, setting up your own business, but it provides a bit of an answer, I think, for a lot of people. And I think it's also something that people are doing and starting to prepare for on the side, so that when the economy kind of, starts to blossom again, which we're understanding hopefully will be in the next few months, we're all crossing our fingers, that they'll be ready and they'll take on a life and a lifestyle that is more satisfying for them. Because I think the deprivation, not just travel, but the deprivation that we've faced and the change has meant that people are craving more satisfaction and more fulfillment in their lives.
Well, one of the things that I think we learned over the last few years is that we got a bit of a wake-up call.
Yeah.
That best intentions aside, we're not always in control of our lives, of all the different elements or different spokes in the wheel that make up our daily reality. And we certainly got that wake-up call during the pandemic.
Right.
And it didn't just sort of, as you say, show up, stay its course, and leave and move on.
Leave, yeah.
Things continue. So I'm a firm believer that everything is connected. I'm also a firm believer in looking at relying on facts and data and doing my homework and doing my research. But one of the things that I've had to come to terms with is that data aside, emotions do play a role in our decision making.
Yeah.
And so emotions, although they're intangible and they may not necessarily be logical, they're still a factor, or they're still a variable in the equation of what ends up being our daily lives.
Well, I think one of the things we've learned from this period of the last, 4 years, is that when things are severely changed, when there's restriction, when there's other things, it forces people to look at their lives. And I think when people are looking at their lives, that's when that emotion really plays in. I don't like this. I'm burnt out. I want to do something else. So I think there's a lot of, I mentioned to you that my one set of my children decided they wanted to move across the country, and they ended up coming back. But it was that I really want to do this. I want to have a different set of rules for my life. We find that with people who are leaving long-term careers. Think about nurses or PSWs. Think about, the people who are really, we've relied on for the last 4 years, but they've had a bit of a tough time. So I feel like people are wanting something more from their lives. They want a little bit of control, and they don't always have that, but they want to be more satisfied, for sure. They want something more fulfilling.
So along this same theme, and I want to get into what you offer and the services that you provide in a program that you're running. I want to get into that in just a moment, but I really want to set that up. And speaking of facts and data, one of the things that I did while researching was found out, and I found it quite surprising, and then I didn't, was that approximately 22 to 25% of all businesses that are in operation today were started between the years 2020 and 2023. Now, if we look back at what happened during 2020 and 2023, we can, I think, reasonably come to the conclusion that, well, the world kind of was shutting down and people were getting laid off and people were looking at how they were going to feed their families. And the whole concept of side hustle really sort of got a boost.
It really did.
Yeah, go ahead.
And actually in the spring of 2023, I was saying to people, don't quit your job just yet. There's not a lot of stability. It takes time to learn how to be a business owner, and it takes time to develop your business. So do it on the side, because I think that was a safer, kind of option for people, rather than just saying, to heck with this, I'm going to do this now. And they didn't really want to do that, because people got very careful in 2023. People stopped spending wildly in 2023. So that's the data that I've just discovered.
So if we break it down, though, it's not unreasonable. It's not a stretch to see why that many businesses took root. We needed to cover our mortgages. We needed to put food on our table. We needed to provide for our families, and other options had been sort of limited or taken away from us as individuals. So we did what we needed to do in order to survive. The challenge is that, again, coming from the mortgage side, when it comes time to buy a home, or, as I've said before, you also need to requalify to stay in your home.
Yes, you do.
So when the lion's share of your income changed from being an employee of whatever sort to suddenly being self-employed with no track record, or maybe lacking 2 years of verifiable income, suddenly that, you had a new and interesting conversation with your bank, basically.
It surprises people often when that happens, which is one of the other reasons I'll say to people, look for all of the things that you want to do. If your mortgage is going to renew in the next year, go carefully, because you want to be able to accomplish your goals. And so you can craft your life in many different ways. And I think that's what we've learned from this last 4 years. You can have what you want, but you may need to also stick it out where you are and have that salary. And maybe there are still employees who love what they do. It's been tough for everybody, but regardless of whether you have bigger aspirations or not, it takes time to plan. It takes time to actually be effective and look after your family, right?
So this is going to rub somebody the wrong way, I know, and I'm okay with that. I've taken a lot of lumps along the way for my opinion. But to those wonderful people who did what they had to do, and you have to admire the courage that it takes to set out on your own. A lot of people are still, again, they're searching or they're seeking, where can I get good advice? Many of us find ourselves where we are through a series of just really wisdom and experience. 1 year after the next somehow equals 20 years of experience, when really it's often 1 year of experience repeated 20 times.
It could be.
It could be, for many. And then venturing into the world of entrepreneurship or self-employment, put it this way, self-reliance, if you want to look at it from that perspective. But we're still asking our friends, our neighbors, we're looking to the left, we're looking to the right, we're reading the news. And for all the right reasons, I think we want to trust that that information is going to be sound, that that information is going to be good information and reliable information. Here's my challenge. 85% of people are not self-employed.
Right.
They're not business owners, they're not investors. 85% of people are employees.
Right.
So to go to that source for information, to me, is not necessarily the best advice that I would offer someone.
Well, I certainly wouldn't either. I'm a believer that, and it may be a smaller group, but I believe that the community of entrepreneurs and people who have on the ground experience of whatever they're doing, they've grown a business, they're growing a business, those are the people that you rely on. So for me, it's not just learning, and learning is important. Don't get me wrong. I've seen people make some terrible mistakes and have wasted money or have wasted time, and I'd rather see them, thrive. Absolutely. But community is one of the most important sources of information. When you're asking your family, they may not have experience. If they do, that's a blessing. That's great. There are great family businesses in our area for sure. But if they don't have that experience, then they're not necessarily rooted in actual, I've tried this, it's good, it hasn't been good. You need to have the results to be able to say, hey, don't do that, Arif. That could be a bit of a mistake. How about you try something else here? Mm-hmm. And also the community of entrepreneurs is important because unlike employees who tend to be in their own silo, and they have departments to support them, but an entrepreneur who can collaborate with another entrepreneur is often more successful than somebody who's trying to do it all on their own.
So you've spent the last decade and a half studying, learning, working with entrepreneurs, collecting data, studying the patterns, but also learning, because certainly I think if you look back at a decade and a half ago, one or two things might have changed.
They did. Everybody learns. I mean, if you don't learn, you're stuck in a place that isn't maybe relevant. And I think the one thing that's happened is that the need for learning is really obviously continuous now, because little adjustments. So that's what I've been doing, because I figure that one of the things I can help people with is doing the research they don't always do. Looking at patterns. And when I discovered, particularly halfway through 2023, wait, things are changing. What is behind this? So I started digging in again. And that's, I think, been helpful because it gives you perspective. And when you're in fear, and when you're in your own bubble, you don't have the perspective that you need to be able to operate.
So when we come back from the break, I want to ask you about what you've learned and the data that you've collected working locally with entrepreneurs, but also across the country.
Cool.
And basically taking all this information and putting it into something that is, to be studied and to be understood and to be researched and then to be put back out in the community for others to learn from. Cool. And I want to talk about the collaboration piece that you've got working with your clients. So stay with us for more of Hitting Home. Thanks. My guest, Patricia Dent from Grow Advantage. When we come back, we'll talk about basically asking for directions. Welcome back to Hitting Home, and I'm thrilled to be joined by my friend and guest, Patricia Dent, mentor and CEO of Grow Vantage, and you run a program and a module, Ask for Directions, and I want to dive deep into that, but let's set the tone just a little bit. Okay. Before the break, we were talking about the fact that the world as we know it has changed. We've gone through a lot of changes, more so in the last 4 or 5 years than quite possibly in many decades, if not generations.
20.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
And let's agree that it is okay to want more in life. It's okay to be addressing the mental stress or the tension or the uncertainty of where our lives are as the world has changed and we're no longer in this sort of sense of euphoria that everything's just going to work out. There's been a lot of sort of curveballs thrown at us in the last few years. And the mean Arif is going to come out right now just for a second.
Excellent.
But I am personally of the opinion that if my roadmap to success includes me expecting that I'm going to get my anticipated raise every year, I think we're in trouble.
Right.
I think I'm in trouble. I don't know that that's a formula for success. In fact, I'm pretty sure it's not.
Right.
And so embracing and appreciating the fact that people have decided, you know what, I'm going to go and sort of stake my claim in the world, and I'm going to go out and try entrepreneurship. I'm going to go out and try business ownership, I think is wonderful.
Right.
But I do think it comes with a whole bunch of cautionary flags that need to be thrown up and need to be addressed.
Right.
And so what I wanted to really ask you about is the guidance and advice that you have for somebody who says, you know what, I'm really good at this,
Right.
therefore I'm going to turn it into a business and I expect to be very successful. And I think that that's kind of only part of the story. I admire the courage of the person.
Exactly. And the confidence.
But
right?
I'm a little concerned for the outcome. And you talk about exit a lot, and I don't know how much you want to talk about exit now, but there's got to be a strategy. You can't just say, I'm good at something, so I'm going to go start a business and everything's going to go my way. So let's talk about that.
Okay. Well, and that isn't uncommon. I have, one of my grads has said, I thought, how hard can it be? I'm an intelligent person. I should be able to work it out. The truth is, if you've come from an environment of employment, you have a very limited scope of responsibility. And you may love and have really good knowledge about the thing you do, but entrepreneurship is so much more. You become the most important person and the responsible person for everything. So how can you do that if you don't have experience? Mm-hmm. You really got to learn. There's several aspects to it that I think are important. One is, what are the mechanics? How do you set up your business, and how do you comply with things like CRA? Because that's important. And how do you take the shortest path to being successful without making a whole whack of mistakes on the way? Because people do. They become short-sighted because they have so much to do, they want to focus. The truth is, as an entrepreneur in the beginning, you're going to be responsible for everything. So what do you need from my perspective? You need learning, absolutely. You need to know to do it the right way so you don't make those mistakes that cost you money or cost you time. You need to be able to learn what the other things are that you don't even know, that you've never even thought of. So for that, I think you need learning, formal learning, but you also need strategy.
Any particular examples you might have for that?
Okay. If somebody is saying, so somebody had contacted me and said, you know, I want to do this. I want to write. Okay, great. You want to write for a living. What's the impact of AI on what you're doing? Because if somebody can go to ChatGPT, how valuable is that? So you've got to do an assessment of the thing you love and how can you adapt it to the market. Mm-hmm. I know somebody who adapted from copywriting to grant writing. Incredibly important if you're going for grants, but it had to be a pivot because of the rise of AI. Another change that we hadn't anticipated, right?
Mm-hmm. And grant writing is a whole monster unto itself. I mean, the people who are offering grants, they have a specific formula that they're looking for in terms of the grant submission.
Do you know what my advice is for grant writers? Answer the darn question.
Exactly.
Right. Okay.
And so here's something that's interesting, and you know me, we've sat in the room together a few times, and I'm a little bit of a tough love individual.
Yeah.
And in some of the consultation that we do with the people that we sit across the table from, is they come in with a lot of enthusiasm, and I love enthusiasm.
Yes,
they come in with ambition and intention, and they come in with some expertise, and I think that that's incredibly important.
Yeah.
The question that often needs to get addressed, and one of the things I love hearing from people is, oh, nobody's ever asked me that question before.
Yeah.
Include something along the lines of, it's nice that you're good at that. It's nice that that's your talent. Do you know that there's a gap? Do you know if there's a gap out there in the marketplace? Do you know if there's a
Right.
need for that specific thing
Right.
in the marketplace? And how are you addressing that gap?
Who have you talked to? How do you know? One of the things that I know that people don't do is narrow down their target market because they want to help everybody. And I was guilty of that at the very beginning myself. I wanted to help everybody. I can't. Not only that, but certain people will resonate with the solution I've got and the methodology I use. You've got to get out and ask people what they need, what they want, and see if you can narrow that down.
Mm-hmm. There has to be a profit center built into your formula.
There must.
So for example, when people go to some of the larger chain stores and you walk through these sliding doors and you see the basket of something on sale, 2 for $9.99 or whatever
Right.
it may be, it's a loss leader.
Yes.
It's the thing that's been advertised to get people in the door because that enterprise knows that when they're in the door, they'll buy the other things that are more profitable. It's a loss leader for a reason.
Right, right.
If the only thing you sell is that popular item because you're competing on price and it's a loss leader, you're out of business before you know it.
I can tell you competing on price is a very bad idea. That said, in this current environment, if you are above the line of where people feel comfortable in spending money right now until the economy turns around, and we must say it will turn around, it always does, but it takes time, then you're not going to have those customers. So you may have to adjust your pricing and adjust your offer, again, strategy, so that you can make your market happy. And maybe your market has to change, which is a little bit of a surprise for people as they've been through this. You know, maybe those people are no longer my customers.
Mm-hmm. So and that's a very difficult thing to have to address.
Absolutely.
Is sometimes emancipating from your customers.
Well, yeah, and where are you going to find the people? When I tell you that I've done a whole bunch of research, it's true, because if you don't do your research as an entrepreneur, you're going to be uninformed.
So this is a challenge for some, not for everybody. We have a saying in our company that we're not allowed. We are literally forbidden from having personal opinions.
Oh. Okay.
And that is designed to protect the company from us. It's designed to protect, because as a director of an organization or as an employee of an organization, we are responsible for carrying out and serving the best interest of the organization, which can include the best interest of the client, of course,
right?
But also, what does the company need us to do? So having a personal opinion can be dangerous. So if it's not, if our recommendation or guidance isn't founded in research and fact and data, then it's just an opinion.
It's true, and you talked about earlier, you know, the impact of the personal mindset on somebody and how it bleeds into business. The unfortunate part is that we all make assumptions. It's a shortcut. We think we know, we've made an assumption, we don't always test it, and if you don't, that's going to bite you in the behind, frankly, because it can. Personal opinions have to be tested in lots of ways. I think it's this way. Great. Go and find out if it's actually that way, because if you don't, you're banking your whole future, or at least your future as an entrepreneur, on an assumption that you haven't proven.
So a couple things to take into consideration. If you're coming to market as a brand or as a business, and you know, there are a few things to look at. What is your value proposition? Includes what are you doing differently than what is already readily available out there.
Right.
Now, if the market says, I'm okay to go into business because there's enough demand that I can be the same as my competitor, that may or may not be okay if there's enough demand for it. But if you're actually going into the market to stand out and be different, you need to know what that value proposition is.
Well, right, and how you differentiate from your competition. I mean, pet rocks were really fun, and they lasted all of 6 weeks, right? Because what is it? It's a rock. So you don't want to be exactly the same as everybody else, in my opinion, because if you are, then what would they care? You become a commodity, not something that's valuable. So you have to identify that value proposition. Absolutely, that's key.
So what are some more of the tough questions? You're really skilled at something and you love doing it, and I'm going to follow my passion. To me, those are the most dangerous words that anybody could tell. I'm not a fan of it. I know there's a lot of social media out there that's saying, you go girl or you go guy or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
And I think that's lovely. And I also think it's dangerous. So what are some of the other things, other than just being skilled at something? I know a lot of people in certain professions, let's call it dentists, doctors, whatever it might be, they're phenomenally talented in their art or their science, but maybe they're not the greatest at business. So what are some of the other things that we need to be mindful of? One of the things I think you talked about during the break was marketing, for example.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. You need to be able to identify your market, and it needs to be able to resonate with them. So you've got to make a difference or a transformation in their lives of some kind. Now, if it's a pet rock style company, it's not that big a transformation. But if you're trying to do something that you're passionate about, and I disagree with you a little bit.
That's okay. Go ahead, bring it.
With the passion, it makes it easier. If you really are motivated to help people, and often people come to me because they want to do something like that, and they come to me to learn the other things
Well,
that they don't know.
that's just it. though.
Right.
You have to be willing to say, I love it, and
Yes.
I'm dedicated and committed to it, and there's got to be a business side to it as well.
How can I get it to be a business?
There's got to be accountability.
Right.
Whether
Oh,
it's
yeah.
you or you bringing on a partner who's going to be that accountability counterpart.
And may I just say about partnerships, get an agreement right off the bat. It's not set up in Canadian law very well, so that's just a thing.
Absolutely.
But you have to understand what's your structure, what's your accountability, are you protecting yourself? Because you don't want to start something that you're really passionate about and then you lose your house because you're not protecting your business.
In the seconds that we have left,
Yes.
ask for directions. Bottom line is that going out into business ownership and venturing out into that is great, and I encourage anybody to do it.
Right.
But surround yourself with a good community. We're going to have your name up there and credits up there, and et cetera, et cetera. I encourage people to reach out to you. But asking for directions is critical, and it's
Right.
about putting yourself in a community of, a supportive
Like-minded
environment.
people, yeah, and learn from others.
All right, we're going to have to leave it there.
Okay.
I have a funny feeling there's going to be a part 2 to this, but I'm very thankful to you. Patricia Dent, Grow Vantage, business
Thank you.
mentor and CEO. Ask for directions, look her up. We'll see you next time on Hitting Home.